Welcome to Digestible Academia, a BlueSky Thinking podcast where we break down complex academic research into something a bit more digestible. Each week, we will choose a topic to discuss and do a deep dive into some of the most interesting articles on BlueSkyThinking.com about that topic. We'll be discussing the findings of the research and why it's relevant to you. I'm Chloe Lane, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kerry Ruffle. Today, we're also joined by Georgina Tierney, who is a senior account executive at BlueSky Education. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Today's episode is all about collaboration. We'll be discussing how different generations can collaborate better, whether face-to-face meetings are ever really needed, and how to effectively solve business conflict. But first, how are you both, and how has your week been?
Good, thanks. I feel like at the moment it's the beginning of the year. Well, we're in February now, so it's not really the beginning of the year, but it's been so busy.
Yeah.
All that sort of lovely Christmas relaxing, it's all far, far behind us. I just feel like things have been really busy. So in terms of sort of trying to be proactive and trying to be planned and trying to, put your best foot forward, I feel like at the moment it's a lot.
I'm feeling the opposite of that because I've just come back from a lovely holiday, so I'm
very
relaxed. Not to rub it in or anything.
This is what's fueling it for me. I've been really busy and you've been skiing.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. But also, sorry. How are you?
Yeah, good. I've been loving seeing the brighter evenings come in.
Yeah,
it's like
nice,
slowly but surely. But it is. It's lovely, and I always just feel so positive this time of year. It's
I
like
love
brighter.
that.
It's getting nicer. So yeah, busy.
Yeah, it's nice to leave work at the end of the day and the sun still be up.
Yeah, exactly, and like go for a walk, and it's still sunnier. There's like a nice evening sky.
Yeah, going for a walk in the evening is elite.
So good. Yeah, exactly. It just
really
stretches out the
improves
day.
Yeah, it does. It really improves your evenings.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Well, so we go right into the articles then we're discussing. So the first one is about how we can encourage intergenerational collaboration. So first of all, have you generally worked with colleagues of like different ages, or have the colleagues you worked with generally been quite similar ages, would you say?
I think here, between us, I mean, there's not that much of a divide in our workforce.
Yeah.
We're all sort of, the span of ages is probably about sort of 10, 15 years between all of us. So
I do think that's quite rare, isn't it?
It is. I think so, yeah. So it's not, I don't think it always feels that big, but certainly, in other roles that I've worked in, or the jobs that I've been in, I have been that person that is the youngest person in the room, and the boss could be, is another generation older, could be a parent, could even be a grandparent in some, if you were looking at it that way. So I've experienced it, but not for a very long time. I've been here a while now, and we're all fairly similar.
Yeah, and Gina, we were discussing earlier in retail how the ages can be quite varied. So you've got very young people of like 16, and then you've got much older people that have been there for ages.
Yeah, people who like really understand it and like know obviously retail inside and out because that's what they've done forever.
Yeah.
But I feel like even then, like when I worked with people who were older, like we were all of this, like there was nobody who felt older.
Yeah,
if you get me, like. They weren't coming to me or any of my colleagues at the time asking for advice for things. We weren't having to teach them how to do things. Like it was very much the opposite way around because they knew. So I've never really felt a generational difference as such.
Yeah. So very varied experiences there. Like obviously that back then and this now where we're all quite similar ages. So it's nice to have that perspective. So a professor called Professor Anne Burmeister at the University of Cologne finds that when younger workers ask for informational training from an older co-worker, the older worker's motivation gains a significant boost, which is lovely. The study investigated the positive and negative effects of workers over 45 seeking knowledge from their younger co-workers. They found that asking younger co-workers for informational help increases older workers' motivation to continue working, because it provides an important opportunity to offer value for those older workers, which is really nice. However, older workers may feel embarrassed when asking for help or knowledge from younger colleagues due to societal norms that position them as primary knowledge providers. And overall, the study found that if older employees view intergenerational interactions as beneficial, those feelings of shame associated with seeking advice from younger co-workers diminishes, leading to increased motivation all round. And the study also found that companies that cultivate a culture of continuous learning to help older employees stay relevant amidst rapid technological advancements, generally perform better. So, yeah, what do we think about this study? Because I think this is a really nice one.
Yeah.
Finding that those older co-workers can really gain value from asking those younger co-workers for knowledge. But
I think this is a really good one to bring up from BlueSky Thinking. I think it's such an important topic, particularly at the moment.
Yes.
Because we've said, amongst ourselves in the team that we work in, there isn't that much of a shift in terms of age. There isn't that much difference. But that's not typical, as you pointed out. It's, we're currently at a time in our lives where the age of retirement's going up. People are working longer and longer.
Yeah.
You've got 4 generations in the workplace. You've got baby boomers, you've got Gen X, you've got Gen Z, millennials, all in the same place, doing similar jobs, trying to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And you mentioned technology as well and technological advancements. And it's true. I mean, I do feel that even though I'm maybe only 8 years older than you or something like that, my view of tech is different from somebody who is coming out of school now. And, you can only imagine what that's like if you're sort of 10, 15, 20 years ahead. The ways in which different generations work, the knowledge bases they have, the way they just like to communicate, even simple things like younger generations don't typically like picking up the phone and talking to somebody. They'd prefer to write it. All these little things, they can make a huge difference in the workplace. And they can, if you don't understand it, cause clashes as well, because you get staff that perhaps aren't seeing eye to eye just because the way they communicate is different. So I think studies like this, particularly for, whether it's workers or employers, are really important because it breaks down what the value is in actually overcoming some of those things that you're not comfy with and doing things like asking for help, asking a younger worker how to do something and getting into the habit of doing that so that you can learn a bit more.
Yeah.
And for younger workers as well, actually trying something a bit different and stepping out their comfort zone and looking at engaging and communicating in a different way so that they can learn something new, have something else to offer. So yeah, our workforce isn't typical because we're all very similar, but it's, it's important that, we realize that that is not typical.
Yeah. So why do we think that these older workers often find it difficult to ask younger colleagues for help? For example, maybe with tech or,
Maybe it is, not that I think it should be embarrassing, but maybe it is a little bit like, if they're older, they're probably more senior. So kind of accepting the fact that you might need a more junior colleague, that might be hard for some people. I feel like that's the only thing I can make it make sense with. I really don't know. But I think, like Kerry said, I mean, asking younger colleagues for help, it also really helps them feel valued and more confident. Like if someone goes to a younger colleague for help, the younger colleague will feel like really part of the team as well. I think that can only benefit everyone, and to have other insights into things like say someone of an older generation might have one view of tech, getting the view of a younger person with a totally different view of tech can only benefit everyone in the long run.
Yeah. So have either of you ever helped an older person with technology, for example? And how has that gone?
I wouldn't say in the workplace. Certainly at home, like family, parents.
And how did that go?
That. I mean, to be honest, I'm not great with tech either. So it's something that I don't want to be stereotypical about it, but my brother is far better at that. So if there's tech problems at home, my brother is the one that's sorting it for my dad or for my mum or whoever it might be. In the workplace, I've not really come across it, but like I say, here we're all fairly similar. That even in this workplace, there are people that are far better at tech or things like, for example, social media, which I think we all know I'm terrible at. But there are members of our team who are they're fluent and it is instinctive and it's natural and they're fantastic at it. And I haven't got those skills. So I have to ask for their advice or try and emulate it because it's not my natural skill set. So yeah, I think it's important to do that and to realize that it's okay not to be good at something, but to rely. That's why you have different people in your teams, right? People that are good at different things. If everyone's got the same skills, you don't grow, you don't progress. So if you've got somebody on your team, age shouldn't come into it when it comes to how good they are at a certain skill. But there's a culture shift in that, right?
So sure.
If you've been in a job for, 15, 20 years and someone younger comes in and they've got more skills than you, it is humbling to say,
Yeah.
I need your advice. I need your guidance. Can you help me with this?
Mhm.
And particularly for an older generation who've grown up and it's, you respect your elders and, you earn respect through seniority and how long you've been somewhere.
Mhm.
It can be really hard, I think, to make that shift and realize that actually the person that's been there 5 minutes might know more about something than you do.
Yeah.
But like you said, Gina, it's really important that they have those discussions because there's a younger person coming into the workplace who might get that confidence boost to be able to share what they're doing, or they might have a really good new idea that no one else has thought of because it's more applicable to them than it is to an older generation.
Yeah.
And by not sourcing that, then a company's missing out. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever helped anyone older with something like tech or something that they didn't know as much about?
Similar to Kerry, so not in the workplace. And my grandparents would kill me if they ever watch this. But yes, I've helped my grandparents with, my granddad, he sticks with his old not Nokia phone, he sticks with that.
They're a classic for a reason.
They are, and
They are
it works.
indestructible.
Yeah. I mean, he's had it for years, so yes, definitely indestructible.
You can throw that thing at a wall, it will not break.
And it's fine. Battery life lasts better than any of mine do. But my granny is on the iPhone, and she I helped her to learn how to use that, and I've helped them with their television, and we're gonna put Netflix in for them soon, so we'll be teaching them how to use that pretty soon. And again, they would murder me if they ever listen to this, but yeah, so not so much in work, but at home. And like Kerry said, actually, the first thing that came to mind was I had a present idea, which I can't say in case they listen.
Yeah.
For someone, but I went to Meg, our social media executive, for help with designing said present, because I had no idea how to go about it. So yeah, I think as much as I've helped older generations, there's certain aspects that I've gone to other people with more expertise for help as well.
Yeah. And did that make you feel good going to a younger colleague for advice?
Yeah, because I knew Meg could help me, and I couldn't do it without her.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely felt good to get the help.
So you tried both sides then.
Yeah.
And how do you feel when someone comes to you for advice? Both of you, how does that make you feel?
it's always nice, isn't it?
It is a bit of an ego boost.
Yeah, it's nice when you know that you can, if you've got the answers.
If not so much.
It's nice if you feel that you can help someone, or you can share something you've got a skill in, so it can bring someone else up. So yeah, I just think it's always a good thing to share skills, and it doesn't always have to be like a generational thing. It's just people have different pockets of skills and awareness and experience that other people don't have.
Yeah.
And I think if you can keep up that sort of culture exchange, then it doesn't really matter how old the people are. If you get used to sharing and from learning from other people, not just from the top down, then that will progress with you as you grow through a company, or you grow in your experience and you become more senior. So hopefully, if you're then in a position of leadership, the next people that come in, you won't be so intimidating.
Yeah.
There will already be that really nice base culture of people just sharing and talking and building skills.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really nice when someone comes to you. But similarly, I'd like to think that I'm quite happy to go to others to ask for advice as well, and that I don't have too much of a chip on my shoulder about it. I'd like to think that.
Yeah. I would say that working. And to be honest, yeah, you're completely right. Like when you know enough about a topic to help somebody else, you just have that realization of, oh, I actually learned a lot about this topic from other people over the years. And it does feel really, really nice. Yeah.
Sometimes you don't realize how much you know about something until someone else asks.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like reassuring. It's like, oh, I do know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. I can be an asset.
That's quite, I hadn't thought about it that way, but that is quite nice.
Because you absorb so many things without actually realizing until someone asks you, and then you realize, oh, actually, I've learned loads about this, I don't know, random topic. Maybe
it reaffirms sort of your belief that actually you do know what you're talking about. And you can do a good job of it.
Yeah. So we mentioned technology, and obviously last time we spoke to you for the podcast, I think we did the episode over Zoom, didn't we?
We did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, it was around Christmas time. It's about consumerism.
Yes.
And yeah, so obviously now we are recording this in person for anyone listening. And this is about whether face-to-face meetings are ever really needed.
Oh,
which is an interesting.
Be careful with your answer.
Yeah, very careful, very careful.
So, a professor of digital strategy and business marketing at Valeric Business School, he's called Steve Moyle. sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, and his colleagues offer advice on selecting the most appropriate meeting format, whether that's audio calls, video calls, or face-to-face. The study suggests that while virtual meetings are effective for most purposes, face-to-face meetings are particularly beneficial for longer sessions that demand high engagement or aim to build trust and relationships. He found that face-to-face meetings are best for trust building and high engagement discussions, while virtual meetings work well for information sharing and decision making. When it comes to virtual meetings, video calls are more effective than audio calls, conveying emotions and making decisions. However, both video and audio tools help to bridge the gap for relationship building when in-person meetings aren't possible. So, do you prefer virtual meetings or in-person ones?
I feel like I've quite maybe a unique position because I was in university when COVID started. So I'm so used to everything being virtual because everything was online for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of only know this world of virtual meetings and virtual whatever it may be. So for me, when I have a face-to-face meeting, it's like really exciting. it's like a big day out. But like for something like this, I think it's way more fun to do it in person because just the rapport is a little bit different. I think meetings over, Zoom or Teams or whatever are perfect, especially in the work that we do, and we work with people from, all over the world. And it's great to actually be able to speak to them and not just do everything over email and see them and build relationships. But I do also love the opportunity to meet with people in person. So
yeah. And do you notice a big difference between, say, you're having a call with the client, if you have it over video or whether you have it just audio only?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's just great to see people's facial expressions when you're speaking and
so you prefer video then?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
What about you, Carrie?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's on Teams or Zoom in particular, if you join a call and somebody's got their camera off and it's just that icon with their initials or it's just a blank screen, that can be quite off-putting. And I know it's ridiculous because, phone calls started with just audio. You never saw the person on the other end, So you had no reason to assume somebody wasn't listening, for example. When you come into a scenario like Teams or Zoom and someone's got their camera off, you can't be sure that they're paying attention. And you can't be sure of how they'll react to something. You can't gauge what you're saying based off how their face changes or whether they're nodding along and the body language. So I'd agree. If you're having a call with someone or you're having a meeting with someone, it's always best to be able to see them.
Yeah.
Now, my experience is really different to yours because I was in a workplace and studying and all that sort of stuff was very traditional. So when I first started working for BlueSky, it was 9 to 5 in the office Monday to Friday. There was no need for flexibility. So we didn't have it. We came to the office. And I went away for maternity leave and COVID happened.
Wow.
And I came back to my spare room and a laptop and downloading Zoom and meeting people virtually. And that was a huge shift for me. I found it quite difficult to reconnect and re-engage and get to know everybody again. And I found that really tough.
Yeah.
And I kind of not wishing to go back into a physical office because, personal life and work-life balance, there were some positives, but I did miss having that immediate connection of having someone sitting next to me or across a table or being able to have a chat over a coffee and all those little spontaneous things that you do in a workplace that might generate ideas or might help you connect or feel a bit nicer and a bit better. You miss that when you're at home. So it's tricky, but I think also on the flip side, we've kind of all been in those meetings, whether digitally or not, where you think, I don't really need to be here. Or why are we having a meeting about this? This could have been a minute-long email. Or, we're having a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. I think everybody, no matter what workplace they've been in that scenario. So do you call everybody to the office to sit around a table in one room for a meeting that either didn't need to happen or actually could have just been conveyed virtually just as easily? So in terms of this study and what it's found, again, it's a really important one to highlight at the moment and sort of the world of work that we're living in because, everyone's being ordered back to the office. We've seen it. We talked about it on a podcast, I think just before Christmas. We talked about the fact that Amazon are now pulling people back into offices again. Trump last week in the US has recalled people back to offices, and I think 20,000 staff resigned or chose a buyout over coming back permanently to an office workplace.
Yeah.
So it's a massively important topic. I mean, it brings into question, do you need people physically in a room to make them productive?
Yeah.
Do you need people physically around a desk to make them have a discussion with each other?
Yeah.
Can it be done via digital means or in a written form?
Yeah. So you've obviously had a very unique situation there. You've gone off on maternity leave and then you come back to work and it's all suddenly online and virtual. That's very hard to adjust back to working again, I can imagine.
It was really strange. I mean, if you'd have asked me then, I'd have told you quite bluntly that I hated it.
Yeah.
In terms of reintegrating myself, taking time out, that amount of time out from a workplace is tricky anyway.
Yes.
When you come back and you can't physically see people.
Yeah. It's hard to rebuild those connections, I can imagine.
And you can't have those, like I said a second ago, there's casual chats where you're grabbing a coffee, it's like, hey, how are you? How's your day been? How was your weekend?
Yeah.
You can't always do that over Teams because you feel like you're interrupting somebody.
It's not the same over message either.
No.
You won't have those casual conversations.
This is it.
Yeah.
You don't reach out to people unless you need something from them. So it kind of stilts all that sort of discussion. But ask me now, 5-6 years down the line, I love that we work in a hybrid format. I think it works better for me. From what I see of everybody working around me, it works better for them.
Yeah.
And I think, again, like bringing generations back into it, as we were discussing a few minutes ago, like people like yourself who studied through COVID, and that sort of in-person or at home is natural. It's a very natural, organic way of working.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that going into a workforce now where you are required to be present 9 to 5, 30 miles down the road in an office, it's probably a bit off-putting in a job.
Yeah, it's tiring.
Well, yeah.
When you do it for the first time after a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like you say, like work-life balance. Like I love coming into the office. I love seeing people and having those like little chats. And, if I'm working on an article and I'm feeling a bit stuck, I can turn to one of you and just quickly say, oh, do you have any thoughts on this? Whereas over Teams, it does feel like it becomes a bigger thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just chatting here, you can get ideas, you can bounce ideas off each other. However, as much as I love being in the office, I love having the option of working from home as well. And I do think hybrid is definitely best suited to most people, like you said. Yeah.
I've had quite a different situation to you as well, Georgina, because I was working full time in the office in my old job. I was commuting an hour and a half each way, so I would get no time in the evenings. Suddenly COVID hit and we all had to work from home, and I had those 3 hours back. And I thought, wow, this is a lot of time. Yeah, so I was sort of gifted those 3 hours, and I was thinking, this is mad. And then when we did go back into the office again, it felt like everyone was just having those meetings over Teams anyway, while sat in the office.
Yeah.
So you might be calling someone on a different floor in the same building.
Yeah.
Over Teams, and you're just like, what is the point of this? Because there's a third person who's not in the office, so you have to do it over Teams.
Yeah.
And you just think, well, what's the point in having this meeting in person if it's not fully in person? It's remote anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I do think getting the time back from commuting is a gift.
Life changing. So as we know, disagreements between top company leaders, that is quite a normal part of running a business, especially a big business. But figuring out how to solve this business conflict when two leaders disagree can be really tricky. A study from ESSEC Business School analysed conflicts within top management teams. They found that traditional resolution methods, such as open discussions and decision enforcement, are often quite ineffective when it comes to resolving these huge conflicts. Instead, the research suggests alternative approaches, such as private mediation, where a neutral party helps this resolution, coalition formation, which involves building alliances to support a particular stance, and strategic inaction, which is choosing to delay the action to allow the tensions to subside naturally. And the study finds that these strategies can lead to more effective conflict resolution in senior executive teams. So that is quite interesting, especially that the traditional methods that we would think don't actually work. What do you think about this?
I mean, again, it's a really good one to bring up at the moment, because everything is changing the way in which we live and we work. And it sounds like a really obvious thing to say. We seem to have been living in this period of change for a number of years now. But yeah, the old ways of doing things don't necessarily make sense anymore. And whether that is, working physically in an office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or, how you go about learning and developing your skills and getting that seniority. But here too, I mean, I think it's a really important, finding that those traditional accepted methods of management in terms of conflict resolution and how you handle that in a business or an office scenario actually are fairly ineffective, and things need to be shaken up a bit in order to be, to make some progress.
Yeah.
I can understand, I can see, it makes common sense to me that if you sat around a table in a boardroom and you've got people that are sort of opposing views and they're going at it and it's getting fairly heated, it becomes a really tricky thing then to calm that down, or to get people to pick sides and sort of vote in favour of things. I mean, that isn't a natural way to come to a conclusion on something, because there's a lot of pressures involved in that. I mean, there's hierarchies at play. There is, do you speak your mind? Particularly if you're a junior member of a team, do you say, actually, I agree with this, if that's not the favourable solution? How do you have the confidence to do that and not have it come back on you? So
you're not particularly surprised that these open discussions don't really work a lot of the time.
I think it's common sense that actually the way to get honesty out of people is to do it in a scenario where they feel sort of free to speak their minds.
Yeah.
And feel comfortable in doing that without any sort of, consequence of it. So I think the study suggests things like, you mentioned sort of,
the private mediation.
Private mediation and stuff. I mean, absolutely. Are you going to sit around a boardroom and share your personal feelings, even if it might offend or ruffle feathers, or, it might be going against the grain of what someone else, or particularly someone senior, is saying? Or do you do that in the quiet, behind a closed door, with somebody who is a neutral third party in a way that is probably a little more comfortable, or perhaps certainly isn't going to be as immediately concerning?
Yeah. So what do you think, Julia, in a business environment? Like, would you prefer an open discussion, or would you prefer to sort of handle things more privately?
Like, open discussion, I suppose, to me, like, on the outside, it sounds like a good idea. But like Carrie said, it can be very hard for particularly junior members to speak up and say, oh no, I actually disagree. And they might be the ones personally feeling it, right? Because someone who's more senior, they're not in that day-to-day kind of work anymore, whereas the junior person could really be feeling the issue if it's more related to them. But also, speaking to a mediator, speaking to someone privately, even if it's like a safe space, does it feel, to me, I would nearly feel sneaky. I would feel like I'm going behind people's back doing it. So, I don't know. I think you mentioned the strategic inaction and the coalition formation.
Yeah.
To me, the kind of coalition, that sounds like it would make the most sense. I don't know how it would actually play out, but mediation, I think, could go one of two ways, where it could feel like someone's being sneaky, or whether you could feel like you were being sneaky, or someone else could think, oh, why didn't they say that to my face?
Yeah.
I think that could create other tensions.
Yeah, and it could almost feel a bit confrontational, maybe, if you've got one person, say we were having a disagreement and we're sitting, opposite each other, Carrie's next to us and Carrie's the mediator.
It's like a tennis match.
Yeah. And it can feel like me versus you rather than us against the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've got a third person involved. So maybe it really is up to the individual how they prefer to handle conflict.
Yeah. I think what stands out to me most about that is the kind of forced decisions don't work. That doesn't surprise me at all, because I can see that, again, building massive resentment in the team, that if one person or even 2 or 3 people just decide, okay, we're not having any more of this, like, this is how it is. On the one hand, it would put an end to things very quickly. On the other, it could build some serious resentment and maybe cause people, like 2 people might side with each other, and it could cause more friction. So it's a really interesting study.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point, because it comes down to culture again, doesn't it? It's sort of what you have in place in an organisation as to whether, certainly whether conflicts emerge, but also how they emerge and how comfortable people feel in that sort of resolution process. In our previous podcast, we talked about sort of delivering bad news to members of staff, and how somebody in middle management or someone in a senior position can do that and do it responsibly and safely and protect them and protect themselves. And it strikes me there's some similar themes here as well.
Definitely.
If you've got a culture in place that is welcoming, that accepts new ideas, that gives everybody the space to be a little bit creative or at least a little bit independent, when issues arise, hopefully that means they can be resolved in a fairly open manner because people are happy to share what they feel, or like you say, they might be on the front line of something, or their perspective on it is going to be wildly different from someone in a different department or with different sort of priorities at heart. But if you've got a workplace that isn't open in that way, where you've got very strict hierarchy, where, like you say, decisions are being enforced and it's we are deciding this, you're going to rub people the wrong way. People are going to rebel, people get angry. Worst case scenario is actually you end up losing people. Staff say, actually, I'm not comfortable being dictated to and being told how to do my job. I'm going to go and find something elsewhere. And then you lose out on that talent, you lose out on those ideas. If people aren't speaking up and sharing what they think, then from my perspective, you're limiting your staff and you're limiting your prospects as a result.
So you're saying it's more about building that workplace culture that allows for those disagreements and resolving those disagreements in an effective way.
I mean, I'm saying it from a very nice place because everywhere I've worked has been fairly open. So it's easy to see it that way from my perspective. I imagine, that's harder to cultivate the bigger your company gets, and the more people you have and the more departments, it can't always be free flowing because actually things need to get done and structure needs to be in place. So,
and also I can imagine the industry as well. Like if you're in a particularly competitive industry, it will be very different. The conflict resolution to a smaller firm where everybody gets on with each other. And you feel like you can have those disagreements and that's fine. Well, they've been 3 very interesting articles, I think. And thank you so much for joining us, Georgina. Of course, thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Hang on, what's it been like? We've done Zoom and now we've done in office.
Yes.
In person or remote.
I prefer it in person. It was just, again, easier to bounce off each other and have a chat.
But it's been always nice having you here.
Thank you. A lovely face in person. If you enjoyed this episode, please do like, share and subscribe for more. All of the articles we discussed, as always, can be found on BlueSkyThinking.com. So go and check that out. And we'll also link them in the description below. Tune in next time. We'll be talking to Patrick Vessner, who's an expert in organisational behaviour, age diversity and digital collaboration, to just continue the discussion that we've had today about how we can collaborate better in the workplace.